around the education system, having focused, well, we will be focusing on the kind of life you'd like to support your son and daughter to build. Others have found it useful to be aware of why the school system is actually the way it is. So some things you experience may be easier to understand if we look at a snapshot of the history of disability education here in New South Wales. It is worth being aware of. So before 1920, as you can see on your screen, children with disability were regarded as ineducable. So it meant they were unable to learn. They went to institutions or actually stayed home and largely received little or no education. Between the 20s and the 1970s, there were some parent-funded initiatives, not state, but parent-funded. Their special schools were started, often by parents who, like you, knew that their children actually could learn, and this was their only way to go about it. Now, the surprising part wasn't actually till 1975 that the state assumed responsibility for the education of all children, and then not until 1986 that there was a dedicated budget to support what was described as integration. Does this surprise you? I know it surprised me when I first heard about it, and think about the impact this history could have on both the education system and the people working in it. So it would not be surprising if this history had an impact on some of the people that you will come across in life generally, and especially in the school system, which is, after all, just made up of people from our general communities. It might be good to keep this in mind when you encounter people who continue to hold some of society's previous attitudes, even subconsciously holding those attitudes. Here's a slide about recent trends. Well, trends in school placement for students with disability. You'll see that the number of students with disability attending special schools, which is the blue line at the bottom, has remained fairly static, and that there's been a slight increase in the support class attendance, which is the red line. You'll also note that there's been a gradual increase in the number of students with disability in ordinary classes, the yellow line, the one at the top. So that this is where the largest number of students with disability are actually going to school. So clearly, if you are seeking a mainstream enrolment, it is not a unique request, and it's actually reflecting the New South Wales trends. Another good piece of information to have at your disposal is information about the merits or otherwise of mainstream education. You may have a gut feeling that your child going to the local school is the right thing, but what does the research say? What can you refer to if people question your decision? The slide now on your screen is indicating a couple of areas of research that's been done here in Australia. Dr. Bob Jackson has done a great deal of research in this area. Dr. Jackson is currently working as a private consultant in disability and education, and is an adjunct associate professor at Edith Cowan University in Western Australia. His work has included a very extensive review of the literature about inclusion, and he has given presentations to parents and teachers across Australia. Other research also available on the benefits and importance of inclusive education is from Professor Kathy Colligan from Macquarie University. She wrote an issues paper in 2013 that states inclusive education is an approach to education free from discriminatory beliefs, attitudes and practices, including free from ableism, meaning the attitude that a person with disability is somehow inferior to a person with no disability. The paper emphasises that inclusive education is a right for all students, and in fact that inclusion is not about disability or about schools, but it is about social justice. Now, one of the things that Dr. Jackson's research has found, 50 years of experience indicates that the majority of graduates of special school education will go on to unemployment or sheltered work, minimal community involvement, and often accommodation in some form of segregated group housing. So that is, after 12 years of segregated schooling, the outcome can be quite limited. Dr. Jackson has illustrated this in the two visions for the future on your screen now. Of course, especially at the beginning, there is a lot of crossover between the paths. However, the gap widens over time, making it harder to choose different options. It's important to understand we're not saying that early intervention is not necessary either at the beginning there, but to consider that a segregated approach to it may lead to more and continued segregation. And also in Dr. Jackson's research, 40 years of research indicates without contrary evidence that children learn more academically and socially in an inclusive environment. This quote refers to all children in an inclusive environment, not just children with disability. It's pretty strong stuff, and there are some articles that you can read at your leisure and share with others, and we'll send you links to these articles after the webinar. Families and teachers have also spoken about the positive impact inclusion has on the other students in the class and the school in general. Research has been remarkably consistent in finding that students without disability benefit from their participation in inclusion. To illustrate this, we thought we'd share an extract from a letter one parent that we know in New South Wales received reflecting this positive impact. The message was given to her from a teacher, and the young man referred to has been included in his local school and has cerebral palsy. So on your screen, I wanted to say what an awesomely special day it was for you and Jai today, and how far he has come and how much you have both encouraged me. I remember being inspired by Jai's efforts in cross-country, swimming, but most of all his fabulous sense of humour. I've also learnt from you, your tenacity to support your kids no matter how tough an obstacle may seem. You just find the path around it with dignity and determination. I loved the book you did when Jai first came to Narangga, and how now we encourage and help other parents to set these up. Narangga has been richer for having your children at our school. I wish the very best for Jai at high school. Thank you for so many ways you enriched my life, even when you probably didn't know it. The sort of letter I think we all be looking for. So in deciding what you want and explaining it to others, it is important that you are clear about what you want and an understanding of what inclusive education really means. Your interactions with the school can have a big impact. Share your vision. Know what you want and what you don't want to the extent possible before you talk to schools. The more research you have done before making contact, the more confident you will feel. During these conversations, if you have decided that you want your child to be included in a mainstream class, this decision could be questioned. So what does inclusion at school look like? Start with this simple illustration to convey that students with disability are just one of the kids. Inclusion is when students are physically present in the ordinary classes of mainstream schools full-time. They're actively involved in their class and their school. They follow the class curriculum with appropriate adjustments, and inclusion implies that everyone belongs all of the time. The students with disability are not an add-on to an inclusive class. They're full class members, like everyone else, with the same entitlement to be taught and to learn. Not only being part of the class, but being seen to belong is also really important. Kids can be quite tribal. So if a student is only in class part of the time or is sitting up in the corner with an aide, the other kids are likely to notice. Of course, some students with disability may require adjustments to facilitate their learning. They may also require learning goals tailored to their personal needs, such as developing communication and social skills. So here on the screen now are some photographs of students being included in group work during science. And there's been a lot of thought put into how these students will be included in the work of their class. Alex on the right there is the nuclei in an experiment. So the students are really able to see how a nuclei works because Alex is very much there in the centre, and he's also very much part of the group activity taking place, as opposed to being set off onto the side somewhere doing something outside of the curriculum there.